Okay. Before we commence, let's take a few moments to worship the Supreme One, the Infinite Compassionate One, the Fearless One, the Supreme Buddha. To do this, can you all be upstanding and recite the Namaskar with me? Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, you may all be seated. Before we inaugurate the story, let's take a few moments to make a firm determination. May the qualities of the great Arhats, whose every footstep were a blessing to the world, be part and parcel of me as well. May I also have these qualities, and may I be forgiven for any misdeeds I have done to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. By making such a firm determination, let us begin. So today we're going to have a story about a nun who is said to have the similar skin color as a blue lily's heart, who was extremely beautiful but yet had to go through a lot of hardship as well. Her name was the most venerable Uppalavanna. So the story starts at the time of the Buddha Padumuttara, where she was born in a good family home in Hansavati. So she lived a very nice life. Although she wasn't born in a rich family, she had everything she wanted. Her parents loved her so much. And her parents wanted her to feel happy all the time. And so they pushed her to listen to the Dharma, to worship the Buddha, to give alms, to do all sorts of merits. And so she did. She enjoyed going to the temple. She enjoyed giving alms. She enjoyed listening to the Dharma. She used to go regularly. So after some time, she decided she wanted to go to this monastery. And so she took herself with her family, friends, and a lot of people to go listen to the Dharma. And just like normal, she sat down before the teacher, and the teacher started to preach the Dharma. But at the end of the sermon, something different was about to take place, because the teacher called to the front of the gathering a certain nun. And at that moment, the Buddha started to praise this nun about what she has done, about her amazing powers. And at the end, the great teacher placed a name, a title. The foremost among nuns with supernatural powers. Now, this young lady looked at this nun. This nun was so calm, looked very peaceful. But yet she knew having supernatural powers wasn't normal. Wasn't something that everyone had. Even though that this nun was calm and tranquil, she was very powerful. The foremost among nuns with supernatural powers, which means she was the most powerful with supernatural powers among the nuns. So just like the great venerable Moggallana, this nun was given the same title but for the nuns. She was awestruck because this person was so calm, so tranquil, so modest. Her senses have been disciplined, but yet such a powerful person can retain such a personality without trying. This young lady was amazed. How is this possible? Because she knew if she had these powers, she would have done a lot more. She would have done great things. She knew that she also had ignorance and attachment, and she knew that if she had supernatural powers, she would do things that she would later regret. And so this nun automatically became a role model. wow, she's amazing. I want to be like her. And so she started to give alms for 7 consecutive days. And at the end of the 7th day, she went to the Buddha and worshipped him and told the Buddha, "Oh great sir, I have given alms for 7 consecutive days, the best I possibly can, to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. Venerable sir, may through the power of all the merits I have done, may I not be born in the heavenly planes. May they all help me attain the supreme bliss Nibbana. I want to be just like my role model. I want to be like that nun. That nun, 7 days before, was given the title, the foremost among nuns with supernatural powers. I want to be like her." And so the Buddha Padmuttara, using his divine eye, looked to the future and saw that this was possible. That in the time of the Buddha Gautama, that she would achieve her goal. She would become someone like her role model. And so he blessed her, saying, "Daughter, your wish will be fulfilled." Now you can imagine this was the happiest day of this young lady's life, knowing that your wish will be fulfilled. Now she did merits wherever she possibly could. Whether she stepped outside the door and saw a homeless beggar on the street, she would do something. Now, when she saw someone needed her help, she was there. She was there and she gave. She did the most she possibly could, because she was so happy that her wish will be fulfilled. And so when she passed away, she was born in the heavenly planes, the human planes, until the Buddha Vipassi. At the time of the Buddha Vipassi, she again had the fortunate chance of giving alms. And at the end of these alms, she had 7 blue lilies in her hand. She offered it to the Buddha and said, "Venerable sir, may through the power of offering these blue lilies, may I become beautiful. May I become the most beautiful woman in the whole country, the whole world, and also may I also attain the supreme Nibbana." And again, because of her merit, she was again born in the heavenly planes until the Buddha Kashyapa, where she was born in the city of Benares. And she was born in the home of Kiki, the great king of Kasi, one of the biggest cities. And she was the second oldest sister of 7. Her name was Samanera Ganta. Now, Samanera Ganta, from such a small age, she enjoyed doing good deeds. She enjoyed helping her parents. And so, when she became older, it was a hobby. Her hobby was to do merits. She helped build monasteries. She helped build ponds and residences for monks, nuns, and helped give alms to the Buddha. She lived her entire life surrounded by the sublime abodes, metta, karuna, mudita, upeka, loving kindness, compassion, altruism, and equanimity. And she lived a celibate life for 20,000 years. 20,000 years. She spent her whole life doing merits. She spent 20,000 years within these 4 sublime abodes, using only loving kindness, compassion, altruism, and equanimity, living a celibate life for 20,000 years. And also, she offered 7 robes that she made by herself with her own bare hands, and gave it to the Buddha and the Mahasangha. And again, may through the power of offering these robes, may I attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. May I not be born in the heavenly planes, may I attain the supreme bliss Nibbana. And may I also be beautiful. Because you can imagine, even though she lived a celibate life, she enjoyed beauty. Being the second oldest sister of the 7, she lived with sisters. And so beauty was a part of her life. So when she offered the 7 robes, she also wished for beauty. And so when she passed away, she was born again in the heavenly planes. And when her lifespan in the heavenly planes ended, she again returned to the human realm, where she was reborn in a certain little village, where she could only earn her living by doing manual labor, which was things like harvesting, selling, farming, and so on and so forth. One day, while she was on her way to her hut, her paddy field, she was on a road, making her way, and she was looking around and saw that today was a pretty sunny day, with clouds here and there, the birds chirping, and she got to a paddy field. It wasn't her, but she saw that it was very beautiful. And next to this paddy field, there was a beautiful lake as well, with sapphire-like water. And it was in the morning as well. There, she saw a blooming lotus flower. And at that moment, she thought, I would like that flower. That flower looks amazing. And so she took off her clothes and started to wade her way to this flower. Picked it, and also picked one of its leaves, a lily pad, and made her way back to the shore. After drying herself off, she placed the flower on the floor and then made her way to the nearby paddy field, where she saw some of its harvest has ripened. And so she went and picked some of its paddy cobs and filled her lily pad with these paddy cobs, and when she was satisfied with the amount, she got back onto the road and made her way. You see, back in those times, picking flowers and taking a small amount from other people didn't mind. It wasn't considered thievery. Instead, they would go on the path with a small bag collecting fruit which they find to give to their children, their families, because everyone lived in harmony. So, by the late morning, she made her way to her paddy field and went to her hut. The first thing she did, she started to fry these paddy cobs and made puffed rice. So, puffed rice is basically like popcorn, in a way. But instead of using corn, you used these paddy cobs. And she had a lot. She separated their amount into 500 parts. So you can imagine, these are almost like snacks to use throughout the day. Because she was a hard worker. She used to do a lot of manual labor. And so she needed energy. She needed something to keep her going throughout the day. So this puffed rice was perfect. But you see, at that time, in a mountain not so far away, a mountain called Gandhaman, which is also known as the mountain Isigiri, where a Pacheka Buddha, also known as the silent Buddha, woke up from his Nirodha Samapatti. After waking up, he donned his robes and looked, who can I help today? And so there was a young lady near a paddy field who can accumulate a lot of merits by offering something to him. And so this silent Buddha came and stood not far away from her. Having seen this silent Buddha, she took the lotus flower, filled her lily pad with puffed rice, with all the puffed rice, and went to this side of the Pacheka Buddha. She put the flower to one side, put the lily pad to the other side, worshipped this Buddha, and picked up the lily pad and offered not 499 parts, but all 500. You see, you can imagine, because she was a manual laborer, she didn't have much food. But when she offered all of it. You can imagine she didn't even care about herself. Herself didn't even pop into the image. She wanted to give. And so she did. So after offering 500 puffed rice, so she placed this flower on top of the alms bowl, covering the mouth completely. And then took a few steps back and again worshipped the Pacheka Buddha. The Pacheka Buddha, with his tranquil features, started to make his way back to the mountain. But after a few steps, this young lady thought, why did I offer this flower? You see, people who are ordained, they surely have no use for a lotus flower. I shall take the flower. I'll take it and I'll wear it. And so she ran until she caught up with this Pacheka Buddha and took the flower from his alms bowl. But again, she thought, if this noble one had no use for this flower, he wouldn't have allowed me to place it on top of his alms bowl. So indeed, there must be a use for the noble one. And so, full of shame, she again went and placed this flower back on top in the alms bowl and begged this Pacheka Buddha for forgiveness, saying, "O Venerable Sir, forgive me for taking this flower. I did wrong, I know it. I shouldn't have taken it. But Venerable Sir, may the result of the puffed rice I have given to you, I had offered to you, may I have as many sons as there were pieces of rice." So 500. She at that moment wished for 500 children. So this may be a shocker for many people, but she wished for 500 children. And may the result of me giving this lotus flower, may wherever I go, may a lotus flower appear under my feet. Every step she takes, a lotus flower appears. That's all she wished for. And may through the power altogether, may I be beautiful. Again, she wishes for beauty. May I be scented like sandalwood. And may I attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So, this Pacheka Buddha blessed her and made his way silently back to the mountain. Now this young lady was extremely happy because she had just offered 500 puffed rice to this silent Buddha. Now, she may not know that this was a Pacheka Buddha, because Pacheka Buddhas don't go around with a board on their forehead saying, "I'm a Pacheka Buddha, I'm a silent Buddha, please offer to me." No, definitely not. But she decided to offer it because of what? Because of his calm features, because his tranquility, because he looked different. He looked like he was happy. And for all we know, she may not even know about Nibbana. I almost highly doubt that she knew about Nibbana. But instead of wishing for Nibbana, what she wished for was, "Venerable Sir, may I one day be as happy as you are." Why? Because this person was extremely happy. She could see that he has achieved a happiness that's beyond her happiness. And so, instead of wishing for birth in the heavenly planes, she wished for his happiness, for happiness like he had. And so, this Pacheka Buddha made his way back to the mountain. But before he started to rise to go through the air to the mountain, he met some shepherds. Now, there were 500 shepherds looking after their sheep and cows. When the leader of the shepherds saw this Pacheka Buddha making his way on the path, and went to this Pacheka Buddha and worshipped him and asked, "Venerable Sir, do you have something to eat, or should we offer something to you?" And this Pacheka Buddha replies saying, "Shepherds, I have just met a woman who offered me puffed rice." And these shepherds asked, "Venerable Sir, she offered puffed rice. What did she wish for?" What was her wish? And as Pachika Buddha replied saying, shepherds, she wished for 500 children. She wished for blue lilies to appear under her feet. She wished to be beautiful. Now the leader of these shepherds thought, she wished for 500 children. And there's 500 of us. And so all these shepherds got together and offered this Pachika Buddha their best curd and honey. And asked this Pachika Buddha, Venerable Sir, may we be the 500 children that this woman wished for. Now before we carry on, I want to stop there. Because why would you wish to be children of a person you don't know? But to be honest, they did know who she was. Because why? She offered something to the Pachika Buddha. So they knew that she was virtuous. They knew that she enjoyed doing merits. Therefore, she is a good person. They knew that she was altruistic. And so they were happy to be children of hers. And so this Pachika Buddha went back through the air to mountain Gandhamana and placed this lotus flower as a carpet. And so through the merit that this young lady did, she was born in the heavens. After her lifespan as a deity ran out, she was born a continuous birth somewhere. Let's see if you can find out. So at the time near her birth, there was a man. This man realized the essencelessness of sensual pleasure. He was sick of it. So he decided to ordain. He decided to become an ascetic. So this ascetic was an aspirant of the Buddha back in that time, but this ascetic used to live near a lake at the foot of a mountain. And this ascetic used to depend on this lake for food, for water, and had a small hut for shelter. So one morning, this ascetic woke up and he went to the lake in order to wash his face. And usually this lake had a lot of lotus flowers, especially these blue lilies. But he saw one a bit different. Not a bit different, very different. Why? He thought, wait, that lotus is much bigger and wider than the others. I've never seen something like that before. But yet, it should have bloomed. Even though it's this big, it should have bloomed in the morning. Flowers like these bloom. Why hasn't it? And so he was very curious. So he decided he would like to go to the flower and pick it. So he went into this lake after washing his face. He went into this lake and picked this lotus flower. The moment he picked the flowers, this blue lily started to bloom. The petals started to spread out. The scent spread across the whole lake, making its surroundings smell like itself. Now, this lily was above this ascetic's head. And so he lowered the flower. And he saw something that he couldn't believe. He started to rub his eyes. And look again. And again, he would see the same thing. He saw a young little girl. A beautiful baby girl with golden skin, who looked very calm and was sleeping. She looked so vulnerable in the middle of this flower all by herself. The ascetic couldn't leave her in the middle of this pond to fend the elements by herself. And so a big fatherly love appeared in him, an intense fatherly affection. And so he decided he's going to take care of this small child, this innocent small child. The moment that flower bloomed, the great god Sakra, his throne heated up, started to heat. And so he went to the earth and saw that this girl was in this flower, and saw this girl was very meritorious. And so Sakra went to his ascetic and worshipped him and said, this girl is very meritorious. She has to be given a great name. Let's name her Padmavati. And so Sakra, after naming this child, conjured up a beautiful house for the ascetic and his new child. And so this ascetic carried her with his lotus flower into his hut and laid her down on his bed. Now, due to the power of the child's merits, fingers sprung from his thumb, and he used to feed this baby. And when this flower started to fade, when the color of the flower started to fade, he bought a new flower and laid her in that. He loved this child with his dear heart. You see, when she grew to the size of a toddler and learned how to walk and run, you remember her wish? May every step I take, may a lotus flower appear. That's exactly what happened. From the time she could walk and run and play, every step she took, a lotus flower rose. And as she grew older and older, the color of her body were like rays of saffron. But it is said that her beauty never surpassed a human. She was the most beautiful human. But her beauty wasn't like a deity. You see, even though she would run around and flowers used to spring from her feet, she smelled like sandalwood. So when she reached maturity, her father used to keep her in his hut, in his house, making sure she doesn't leave the house, because if someone saw her, they would immediately fall in love and want her. He would be forced to separate from her, and he knew that he wouldn't be able to bear it. But one day, the father decided he needed to leave the house to collect some fruit and some water. And so he made the girl promise, Padmavati, please don't leave the house. Stay in the house until I come back. And so, having taken her promise, he left the house with a basket and a jug for water. Now, Padmavati looked out the window and saw her father go deeper and deeper into the forest, and decided she can have hours to herself, all by herself, without her father looking over her shoulder. You can do whatever she wants. And so, just like almost every teenager, she decided to break her promise. She decided to break the rules. And so she opened the door and she ran out. Start to laugh, giggle, play with the grass, look at animals. Now, at that moment, a forester, so a person who lives in the forest, who hunts animals, went through the forest and saw a deer. So using his arrow and bow, he decided to take an aim, and something scared this deer, and so the deer started to run. Now, this forester started to follow this deer, and he went deeper and deeper into this forest until he heard something that shouldn't be there. He heard the most beautiful voice he's ever heard. And when the singing stopped, there's a lot of giggling and laughing. And so, using his ear, he followed the voice all the way to this temple and looked over the bush and saw a young girl and saw that she was beautiful. He couldn't tell if this was a human or a goddess. It could have been either one. It could have been a human or a goddess. he almost was mixed up. And so he thought, wait, she lives in a temple. So there should be an Aztec. So either she's human, or because of this Aztec's virtue, this deity has come down to help him, to attend to his needs. And so he decided to sit around until this Aztec came home. So Padmavati was running around playing, having the best time, the best day of her life, until she was certain that in a few minutes her father would return with fruits and water. She went straight to the house, closed the door, and acted like nothing happened. When she saw her father emerging from the forest, she opened the door and she ran out, hugged him and said, "Father, Father, look what I've done." And carrying the basket of fruit and the water pot, led him home and showed him everything that she has done, or she had pretended to do. At that moment, the forester understood that she was human, that this was her father. Right. So he decided he wants to talk with this Aztec. He went to the door and knocked on it. You see, this Aztec doesn't have visitors. And so hearing the knock on the door, he jumped out of his skin. And he looked around and saw that this forester was standing at the doorway. You see, normally Aztecs don't stay with women. And so you can imagine that this Aztec became a bit too embarrassed. But as an old tradition, he invited the forester inside, told him to take a seat, and gave him forest roots, fruit, some water. After this forester was treated, this Aztec asked, "Good sir, will you stay here or are you going to go?" The forester replied saying, "I would go, venerable sir. Anyway, what am I going to do here?" You see, if you're going to go, would you be able to keep all this quiet? Everything you saw? So this Aztec is trying to say to this forester, "Don't tell anyone about my daughter." And so this forester said, "Well, if you, the noble one, doesn't wish for me to say anything, then why should I speak?" And so, having worshipped the Aztec, he left. But this time, he left a trail as he went into the forest, making marks on the branch, the trees, trampling onto the shrubs, leaving a trail behind. You see, he went straight to the king. He went straight to the King Benares. So he went straight to the village, the kingdom, and he was going to the king's throne room. He was intercepted by guards and said, "Forester," because you can imagine he looked pretty dirty with rags and clothes made out of tree bark and so on and so forth. And so the guard said, "Forester, where do you think you're going?" "Oh guards, I have great news for the king. Please can I go see him?" And so they sent a messenger to the king saying that there's a forester waiting. And so the king was pretty surprised. Foresters don't come into my kingdom often. I have no relationship with foresters because they live in the forest by themselves, eating animals and fruits and stuff like that. They don't come into my kingdom for money or clothes or anything like that. Surprise, this king told this forester to enter. And so the king asked, "Forester, why have you come?" And so the forester replied saying, "Oh, your majesty, you see, I am a very humble forest man. And I've come to inform you about something I saw in the forest." Now this king was confused. Why would this forester come to show or to tell me something that he's seen? And the forester carried on saying, "You see, your majesty, I saw a beautiful young lady at the foot of a mountain, and I returned her straight away, straight to you, to inform you about her." And so when the king heard this, he actually didn't really care. The king had a harem with him, many women, the most beautiful in the country. And so he didn't really care. And he was about to dismiss the forester, but before he was able to dismiss him, the forester was like, "Wait, Your Majesty, she had golden colored skin. Her eyes were like this," and gave a really beautiful description of her. Every piece of description, the king was intrigued, was interested. But he did know that people, just for attention, would give beautiful descriptions. But this forester lived in a forest for most of his life. How does he know what beauty of other women look like? So he was interested, and so he was like, "Okay, forester, okay, wait a moment." He called a servant and said, "Servant, go to my harem and tell them to get ready. I'm gonna come in a few minutes." And so the servant started run into the queen's quarters and told them to get ready. So the king got off of his throne and led this forester to his harem. And the king told all of his 12,000 ladies to get into a line and told them to show themselves to this forester. So one after the other, each of them showed themselves to the forester and walked away. By the end of the 12,000, the king said, "Forester, aren't these women more beautiful than the one that you saw?" There was a big smile on the face of the forester. He started to chuckle. Now the king was offended and said, "Forester, speak. Spill it out. Aren't these women more beautiful than the one you saw?" He started laughing, saying, "Your Majesty, are these women? They are monkeys compared to the one I saw." Now the king had to see this young lady. If the forester said his whole harem, 12,000 of the most beautiful women in the country, were monkeys, that means this woman had to be amazing. So the king's heart started to beat faster and faster and faster, and told this forester, "Forester, we're leaving. Now, you, me, and the royal guards. We're going to find this young lady." And so the king, the forester, and the royal guards made their way to the forest, and the clever forester started to show the trail, saying, "It's this way." And so in the night they camped. In the morning they ate berries and fruits from the trees and made their way to this temple. And so they went to this ascetic, and after the ascetic had finished his meal duties, and at a time when he was sitting down, the king and his men went and worshipped him and offered him robes, medicine, alms, and everything they possibly could, and they sat to one side. And the king asked, "Venerable sir, is there anything else that we can do to this place, or shall we go?" Now the ascetic was pretty scared, because the king has now come to his temple, and if he sees his daughter, he's definitely going to ask for her, and says, "Your Majesty, you can go, please go." Now the king knew that he was hiding something, and so he said, "Okay, ascetic, I will go. But a little birdie told me that you have the company of the opposite gender nearby. This is unsuitable for people who are ascetics, most definitely. So you should give her to me, and I'll take care of her." "Your Majesty, who told you? Who told you that I have a daughter? You see, she hasn't lived with any other human except me. How is she going to live with all those people?" The king replied, saying, "Venerable sir, don't worry. I'll make her the happiest woman alive. I'll make her head of my harem. I'll make her queen. I'll look after Vanamosa. And so the Aztec understood that he has lost. If this king left without his daughter, the king would spread the words that this Aztec is now living with a person from the opposite sex, the opposite gender. That's going to ruin everything. So he had no choice but to call his daughter. So he called saying, "Dear Padmavati, come here, daughter." So she came out of the house, worshipped her father and stood there. Then her father said, "My dear, you see, you have reached maturity. You're now 16 years old. You see, that king over there, he has requested for you to be married to him. It's unsuitable for you to live here with me. So, you should go with the king, my child." And so Padmavati knew that she's going to leave her dear father, the father who had cared for her for many years, the father who she was able to play with, who helped her when she needed help. After understanding that she was born from a flower, knew that because of her father that she was able to survive. And now she's going to leave him. She knew that she couldn't change her father's mind because her father was wise. If the father knew another way for her, he would take it. And so she replied saying, "Very well, father." Worshipped him. I started to cry. A tear, 2 tears, and she started to cry her heart out. The king thought, if she carries on crying, I won't be able to take her. I shall win her father's heart, and placed a large heap of money in the place and took her away. You see, after taking her and leading her to the city, from the moment they returned, he immediately arranged a marriage to be married to this woman. And from the moment they returned from this marriage, the king didn't set his eyes on the other women, on the rest of his harem. He took delight with her alone. Now you can imagine, 12,000 of them, and the king only chooses Padmavati. You can imagine how jealous they got. They knew that they can't do anything to her because the king loved her, adored her, just because she was beautiful, just because every step she took, a flower bloomed. So they were filled with jealousy, they were filled with envy, but they could do nothing. They are unable to do nothing. And so the 12,000 of them got together and discussed that we have to get rid of Padmavati. Because of her, the king doesn't even look at us, doesn't set his eyes on us. I feel ashamed. We have to do something. So they desired to break this close connection with the king. And so each of them went to the king and said, "Oh, great king, your majesty, that woman, that young lady isn't a human. Think about it. Your majesty, where in the past have you seen a human walk and every step they take, a lotus flower appears? Surely she can't be human. Your majesty, I say she's a demoness. You must exile her. You must drive her away, great king, before something happens." But no matter what they said, the king loved her. The king loved her with his full heart. And so he didn't accept any of it. Soon after a few months, the queen Padmavati started to become pregnant. And so when her urges started to appear, what she wanted was to spend 100,000 gold coins on giving to others, giving to ascetics, giving to as many people as she possibly can. That was her urge, that was her want. And so every single day for the 10 months, she would spend 100,000 a day and give it to others. But before she gave birth, there was a border disturbance. A neighboring king declared war on Benares. So the king had to fight this war, and so decided to give the responsibility of the childbirth to 500 women of his harem. But what the king didn't know was that these 500 were very jealous of her. And so when the king left, these 500 women thought that they want to teach Padmavati a lesson, to give her a piece of their mind. And so they started to give her a lot of trouble, gave her a headache. And soon when she was in labor pains, instead of putting her into the best room they could find in the palace, they sent her to a village's room. And instead of using the royal midwife, they used the village midwife. And so these women had given a bride to this midwife, saying, when her child is born, give the child to us and smear a log of wood with the blood and place it near her. And so not long after, the Queen Padmavati delivered her first child, the Prince Mahapadma was born. But if you remember, she wished for 500 children. And so the other 499 children were born from the moisture and blood of the water bag. And so his midwife understood she must do something before the queen recovers her consciousness. And so this midwife smears a log with blood and placed it near her and gave the 500 women a child. And these women took the children and hid them. And so when the Queen Padmavati regained consciousness, she asked the midwife, "Oh midwife, is it a girl or a boy?" And then she was surprised. "I can't hear crying. Is my baby okay? Is my child okay? Is it dead? Please don't say it's dead. Oh, please don't." And the midwife explained, saying, "Queen, this is the child that exited from your womb." And showed her the log, the piece of wood that was smeared with blood. Now seeing this, the queen became depressed, became scared, saying, "Midwife, I can't understand. Why is this happening? I felt it kick my stomach. I don't understand. I thought I had a child in me. This is shameful. What would the king do? What would the king say?" "Midwife, please have it chopped off. Remove it as quickly as you possibly could. Because if the other queens see this, it'll be the end of my life." But just before the midwife had a chance to chop this log, the 500 women from the harem came into the room and excitedly asked, "Oh, Padmavati, is it a girl or a boy?" Just like they didn't know that it was a log. And so when Padmavati shamefully looked down, you see, these other women didn't need to know that it was a log, because they knew that it was a log. And so all of them screamed and ran out. Padmavati closed her ears and started to weep, started to cry, because she knew that it was all over now. She knew that they're going to spread the word. But the midwife did as she was told, chopped this wood up and threw it in the fireplace. And At that moment, the king had won the battle and was returning to the kingdom and had heard that Padmavati was in labor pain, meaning that his child was near. And so before he entered the kingdom, the 500 women went out and met the king and said, "Your Majesty, you didn't believe us. We told you so. How can you not believe us? As though we don't speak without reason. Go then, go call the midwife. Ask her whether your queen delivered a child or a piece of wood." The king was baffled. What? Padmavati? Wood? That can't be. That can't be. That means she isn't human. What human has flowers appear on her feet? What humans have logs in their womb? And so, when he entered the palace, without properly investigating anything, thought that she must be a demon, a demoness, and drove her out of the palace, telling her to get out. And so, the Queen Padmavati had nothing to do. She had no family. She had no friends. Left the palace. Her eyes were puffed up, smeared with all the tears. She was in a shock. She became ill, depressed. You see, the king and the queens and the harem were celebrities. And so everyone around the town knew that Padmavati gave birth to a log. She's not a human, she's a demoness. What could she do? She was depressed. People started to laugh at her. People started to throw stones, telling her to get out. And so she took a corner and found some clothes on the floor, rag clothes. The most beautiful queen started to wear rags. She was so beautiful that the king didn't set eyes on anyone except her. He's now wearing rags. She was unprotected. She had no one. The king didn't even send a guard with her. So she hadn't taken all the abuse. But after she took the disguise, no one knew who she was. The flowers that used to appear on her feet, they disappeared. The skin that used to glow with a golden color, like rays of saffron, those all disappeared. She looked like an ill, depressed woman. She's lived in luxury her whole life. She didn't know how to cook. She didn't know where to go, how to build a house, a shelter, where she get clothes from. So she sat in a corner, knowing that in a few days she was going to die. That there was no hope, no one. And so she knew that, and so she hugged her knees to her chest and started to sob, started to cry, knowing that no one cares. But she hears something. "Young lady, what are you doing?" Is this her imagination? Again, "Young lady, what are you doing on the floor?" She looked up to see an old woman look at her, asking her what she's doing. "Oh, I'm a stranger, looking for somewhere to live, looking for some food. I have no one, nowhere to go, nothing to eat, wearing just these rags. I'm here, ready to accept death." But this old woman, seeing her maternal love, arose and said, "Come here, young lady. I'll give you a place to live. I'll give you food." And so she took her home, gave her food, clothes, gave her some water to shower, gave her everything that she needs. At this time, the king was celebrating his victory. He decided to go out with his harem and celebrate all night. But you see, The 500 women had something to hide. They had children with them. If the king found out, they're most likely going to be beheaded, be punished severely. And so, they found some weavers. And they told these weavers to make 500 caskets. And they put these children in these 500 caskets and they floated them downstream, hoping that they'll never see these children ever again. Now, with the Queen Padmavati gone, with her children, 500 children gone, they can finally go back to the life that they lived. And so when they all went to this party, this festival, celebrating their victory, you can imagine when the king started to look at each and every one of them felt happy, finally that they are accepted again. And so they started to party. They started to enjoy themselves at this festival. You see, now these 500 children are all alone, just newly born. But due to the merits that they have done in the past, due to the fact that they are all feeling perfections, milk sprung from their own fingers, they drank that milk. You see, at that moment, the god Sakra, his throne again started to heat up. And he saw these evil women float Padmavati's children downstream and knew that this is wrong. And so he conjured up golden paper made out of pure gold, and started writing a name tab, having the name, Prince Mahapadma, date of birth, mother, father, and put each individual letter into these caskets and made determination, made these letters not be seen. And so these caskets floated downstream until they got to a certain village. This village was a fishing village. So you can imagine they fish. And so these caskets got caught in these nets. And these fishermen saw that their net has caught something, and they hauled the net in and saw these caskets, 500 caskets, floating downstream, and knew that these caskets weren't weaved by a village weaver, because this material was different, and knew that this belonged to the king. So these fishermen took these caskets back to the king and showed them to the king and said, "Your Majesty, I believe these are yours." The king was suspicious. 500 of these? Fishermen, what are in these baskets? "Oh, Your Majesty, we don't know. We didn't look inside because we thought they were yours." And so he ordered one of them to come and opened one to see the prince Mahapadma inside, and had the name tag: mother Padmavati, father the king of Benares. The king knew that he did something very wrong, that he did something that he shouldn't have done. How could he have done such a thing? Banished an innocent woman for something that she hadn't done. He didn't even take time to check to investigate. He immediately just took their word. And so the king took Mahapadma into his arms, raised the boy up, and said, "Quickly, prepare the chariots, harness the horses. I will go back to the city now, right now." And so when he entered the kingdom, when he entered the palace, he placed the child down and told his advisors, "I would like you to send out as many messages as you possibly can, saying that there's a bag of 1,000 coins, golden coins, on this elephant's neck. The person who finds Queen Padmavati can take the 1,000 gold coins." So the messages spread far and wide, spreading the message. You see, for the weeks months maybe, that Padmavati was living with this old woman. She had never had told the old woman that she was Padmavati. So when the message entered her village, after hearing that announcement, Padmavati informed her adopted mother and told her, saying, "Mother, please take the 1,000 gold coins from that elephant's neck. I do not dare take such a thing. I do not steal, child. Mother, go and take it. You can take it. But that'll be stealing. What am I supposed to say? Mother, take it, take it. You can take it." And so the adopted mother asked, "Okay then, child, after I take it, what should I tell them?" "Mother, tell them that your daughter has found Queen Padmavati." Okay, if you say so," says his mother, as he went to the elephant to get this 1,000 gold coins. And so, when the guard questioned her, saying, "Did you find the Queen Padmavati, old woman?" she replied, saying, "I didn't find her, but it seems like my daughter has found her." And so they asked, "Where is she, lady?" And so she took these guards all the way to her house, and they all recognized the queen, and they fell to her feet. The old woman understood. "This is Queen Padmavati." "What? This is Queen Padmavati? She was left on the street by herself. That's a real serious thing that you've done to her. Without protection, without food, without a place to stay, you left her to die." The king's men set up a white curtain around the queen's residence, placed guards at the door, and went to inform the queen. The king sent a golden palanquin, but the queen said, "No, I will not go this way. I would like to go by foot to the palace. I would like to see the city folk." And so the people from the palace got together and they spread beautiful carpets made of cloth, velvet, all the way, and had canopies set with golden stars above. And they sent beautiful jewelry for the queen to wear. And so she made her way along the path to the palace. But every step she took, the carpet made way to show the beautiful lotus flower. Every step she took, again lotus flowers appeared. After showing the city her great meritorious deeds, she went back to the palace and gave all the beautiful carpets to the old lady, and gave more gold coins to the old lady for taking care of her when she needed her the most. And so when the queen entered the palace, they clothed her, bathed her, scented her, and finally brought the 500 children to her. And the king ordered, "May these 500 women who did wrong to the queen, may they be slaves to the queen herself." And so the king sent out a messenger throughout the whole city saying that the 500 treacherous women will be slaves to the Queen Padmavati. But the moment the queen heard it herself, thought, "No, this is not right. I forgive them. I forgive them for everything they've done. Oh, Your Majesty, don't do that. Instead, let me give one child to each of them. I can't take care of the 500, but they can. They can take care of one each." "As you wish, my queen." And again he summoned a drummer to send out the message. These 500 were made slaves to Padmavati, who has given freedom to all of them. And so she gave 499 sons to the hands of the other women, and they brought them up. But the queen herself took the Prince Mahapadma herself. Now, I would like to stop the story here You see, there's a famous quote that says there's 3 things that you can't hide forever: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Queen Padmavati didn't need to do anything because you can't hide the truth forever. The truth will come out in the end. It doesn't matter. The lies that you say will be found out in the end. The truth will always come out. It may not be instantly, but they will come out. You see, Padmavati was put through a lot of stress, a lot of pain. Think about it. She was tricked, thinking that she gave birth to a log. She may have wished for the floor to swallow her up the moment she found out. Because how will she face the world? After giving birth to this log, imagine the amount of words, the things that she had to hear. Everything she had to hear. The people, the city folk, each and every one of them, laughing, shouting, saying, "Demoness, get out of the village, get out of the city." I wouldn't be surprised if something like suicide went through her mind. But yet, she was strong. Even though she was put through all of that, she was strong. She knew that one day, I'll come back. Because the truth cannot be hidden forever. But even after she became queen, she had the chance of having 500 women as her slaves, doing whatever she wants. But no matter what someone did to her, she forgave them. She forgave them with her whole heart. And to be honest, she gave her children away. Instead of making them slaves, doing her dirty work for her, she gave her children. A beautiful baby boy to each and every one of them. Queen Padmavati has been through so much. And yet, there's more to come. Because these 500 children were born for a reason. She's going to lose all of them. But they're not going to die. But she's going to lose them. You'll find out about that next time. And I'll also like to say a few words about the old woman as well. The old woman, she took Padmavati in. She saw a woman, a young girl. I doubt she was above the age of 18. A young girl who had just given birth to a log, or had heard that she gave birth to a log, who was on the street homeless, without food, without clothes, without shelter. She took her in, not knowing who she was, gave her food, adopted her to make her adopted daughter. She was there when she was needed the most. She was the one thing that kept Padmavati alive. Think about it. If it wasn't for her, Padmavati wouldn't be alive. If it wasn't for her, Uppalavanna, the great Arhat Uppalavanna, wouldn't be there. And to be honest, she wasn't rich either. The old woman wasn't a millionaire, didn't have room to spare, but saw this young girl on the street and thought, no, I can't leave her there. I can't leave her on the street like this. I must help her. And so she did. And let's not also forget, Padmavati lived months maybe without telling her, you know what, I'm the queen. I used to be the queen Padmavati. It's not because she was ashamed, because she knew that She didn't need to. She kept that a secret. To be honest, how long could you keep a secret for? To the grave? Let's say you know something that someone else doesn't. Or you know something, or you're better than something than someone else. Don't you feel the urge to show someone? For example, you know some sort of gossip that no one else knows. Don't you feel the urge to tell everyone? Padmavati could have said, you know what, old lady, mother, I am the queen. I am the queen. Look what these people have done to me. But yet, Padmavati didn't say a word. Didn't even make it like the old woman would have realized that she was the queen. She acted like an ordinary human, an ordinary village girl. You see, she was able to adapt, and adapting is something that not many people can do. Adapt to their environment. You see, when she was queen, she was the queen. When she was put as a village girl, she was a village girl. She was adaptive. She was able to adapt. Okay. So, like I said, Padmavati loses these children. Something really good happens to these children. But for Padmavati, it's really bad. What is it? You'll find out next week. Right. So this week we talked about the story of Padmavati. So that was one of Venerable Uppalavanna's past lives. So let's not forget the three things that you cannot hide: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Remember that. Whenever something bad happens to you, remember that. When someone lies about you, remember that. You can never hide the truth. The truth will always come out. Stay strong and stay silent. Be patient. Because you can't hide the truth. And use it also the other way around as well. There's no point lying. By lying, you are giving a short, temporary solution to the problem. But it will always come out. They'll always find out. Because you can't hide the truth. The sun in the morning will always rise. The moon in the night will always come up. The truth will someday come out. So don't lie. And be patient. Be strong and patient. Just like the Arhats are. Okay. We'll conclude here and we'll continue the story next week. Okay, let's take a moment to transfer the merits to be all quiet, to making offerings to the infinite virtues, all the noble gem, chanting Pirit and listening to the Dharma and engaging in various meritorious deeds today. So first and foremost, let us remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of the Lord Buddha's teaching. And with immense gratitude, let's transfer these merits to the Bhikshu, Bhikshunis, Upasakas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teaching of the Buddha and passed it down to a generation of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, to understand, to comprehend the Dharma. Let us also take a moment to transfer the merits of the whole choir to the members of the Mahasangha throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all the chapters, who have dedicated their lives to a noble path and committed themselves to the betterment of all sentient beings. Let's not forget, among them will be the monks and nuns residing in local temples and nunneries, who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let us all take a moment to transfer merits to Guru Swaminathan and all the monks residing in the monastery, as well as the Anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits and express our gratitude to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by transliterating these sermons, sharing them out with others, inviting others to join them. May through the power of the merits, if any of them have been born on the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born on the blissed plane. May through the power of the merits, may they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill their meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble effort path, and attain supreme Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also transfer merits we require to our devotees, friends of the monastery, for sake of merits, continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes every one of you who have contributed to the construction of the monastery, to those of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes, medicine, as well as those who pass on their know-hows, extend their well wishes. May the power of the merits, may they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill their meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble effort path, and attain supreme Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our mothers, fathers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews, nieces, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employers, employees, and to all those who've helped us, supported us, assisted us in any way, shape, or form. By the power of these merits, may they be healed of any physical or mental ailments, overcome obstacles in their spiritual progress. May they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill their meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble way path, and attain the supreme Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits to devas, brahmanas, spirits, demons, piranhas, sakradevas, as well as numerous gods and deities who are committed to protect and fulfill the Sambhava Sasana. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our god and deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May the power of the merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom, may they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill their meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits to our ancestors who predeceased us, to all those who've been our friends, families, acquaintances in this long journey samsara, and who have helped, and to all those who have helped us, support us, assist us in any way, shape, or form. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits. Let's also transfer the merits to the members of the armed forces, as well as the police force, who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those lost their life and will be their friend or foe rejoice in the merits required to the day. Let us take a moment to transfer merits to all those who have lost their lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides, pandemics, reminding ourselves that among them will be those who have been friends and families to us in this long journey samsara. Let us take a moment to transfer merits with them. May the power of the merits, if any of them have been born on the world of plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the plane. May they abstain from the meritorious deed, fulfill the meritorious deed, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Finally, let's all resolve, may the power and blessing of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, you be a witness the event of many hundreds of thousands of arhats on this blessed land. And finally, may the power of all the merits we acquired throughout the day, you and I and everyone who have made this program success become Arhat Vansi or Arhat Mahin Vansi in this very life, in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. Okay, we'll conclude there. May the Noble Triple Gem be with you all.